Mm-hmm.
Now, this is where it really got interesting. So you had 3 drivers were the quickest drivers throughout the whole day, and they were Tyler Reddick, Christopher Bell, and Shane Van Gisbergen. For most of the race, Christopher Bell ended up like running away. Tyler Reddick was leading for the first few laps or so. Christopher Bell got to the front. Tyler Reddick made a mistake and let him through. Shane Van Gisbergen was kind of around 2-ish seconds off of them. But Christopher Bell...
The predator was stalking his prey. He was just like, yes, they're the mice. I'll let them play a little bit.
So yeah, you had those 3 out front. Toward the closing stages of the race, like I said, we entered this period where it wasn't quite yet where the drivers would be able to pit and make it to the end of the original distance, 100 laps. Was it 100 laps or was it 80?
Yes, it was 100 laps.
Yes, it was 100 because they reduced it to 25 and it was 75. Yeah, maths, not my strong point. So yeah, it wasn't quite at the point where you could pit and make it to lap 100, but you had many teams started to think, well, hang on, we're not going to get to the end of the race because of the darkness. Let's pit now in anticipation of a shortened race. And then sure enough, they all pitted. And then you had a lot of the front runners get to the point where they could make it to the end of lap 100 and pit. And then after that point, NASCAR announced, okay, we're racing to lap 75 now. So you'd already had a lot of the teams and drivers make the call to stop to get to lap 100. And then they announced that it was down to lap 75. Now, again, I completely understand why they had to reduce it. It was dark enough at the end of the race. I'm surprised they didn't reduce it further, to be honest.
Yes.
And we don't have lights, sadly. Garage 56 hasn't quite made that impression yet.
They're just stickers.
The track is never lit. So yeah, I think, whilst I understand why they reduced the race distance, I think they really should have... I'm honest... They knew it was going to be dark, what time it was going to be dark. They knew roughly how long the race was going to take, and they knew that because of the rain, lap times were going to be slower and the race was going to take longer. They really should have thought about shortening the race before the race started. And then, go from there. And then maybe you only have to reduce it by like 5 laps or something, rather than having to take off 25 laps in the middle of the race.
Yeah, NASCAR was definitely scrambling to try to get the race in, or let alone get the race started. Then it's like, oh crap, we might not make it to the scheduled distance. While they're heaming and hawing, the team's like, yeah, we're definitely not going to make it. So they need to hire a couple current former team members to get on these decisions a little quicker.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But what this set up was that you then had a bunch of the race's fastest drivers mired way back in traffic. And that was before the massive wreck happened. And then you had the wreck happen. A few of those drivers managed to get through the wreck and were then put back again. So it was kind of like compounding the frustrations at that point. So after this, you had the much of the latter stage of the race being led by Justin Haley in the 31 for Corlig Racing. I can never remember his number. It is 31.
Yep, it's 31.
I always forget about Justin Haley. Like, he's a really, really good driver, and I'll praise him a lot for the end of this race in particular. But he's a driver that really kind of sometimes fades into the background and needs a bit of a breakout, and he's really good. So hopefully he takes some momentum from this whole weekend and uses it in other races, because he's a decent peddler.
Yeah, he's a good egg.
He really is. So you had Justin Haley from much of the closing stages holding off the likes of Chase Elliott and Austin Dillon before he fucked it into the wall out of the final corner. And me and you were watching this race, and I remember we were getting ready to kind of make fun of Austin Dillon for because he completely separated his tire off his left front tire on the wall, had no control, and ended up rolling all the way down the pit straight. And then almost blocked turn 1. And we were about to be like, oh, why have you done that for? That's like a certain caution. But then I will call him third driver of the day behind Justin Haley and Shane Van Gisbergen for reversing back down pit entry. What a guy. That was great.
They say he cut the course, get a penalty for the time gained. No, that was really a clutch move. I do give Austin Dillon a bunch of crap because the whole time he was behind Haley, we're like, oh, he's just gonna punt Haley to take this win. But then he wrecked himself and then did the really smart and actually courteous move of getting his car off the freaking track so the race could keep going. So bravo to him on that.
That was really good. I wonder how much of that was his own volition and how much of that was NASCAR officials shouting at him, "Get your ass off this track. We don't have time for this."
Yeah.
So whilst Haley and Elliott were kind of running station, there weren't really battles for the lead between them. They kind of just remained about a second apart. Like, it was close, but nothing was really happening yet. Whilst that was happening, all the drivers who were really fast and now had fresh rubber were starting to come through. But one was starting to come through a lot quicker than anybody else. It was interesting because when Shane Van Gisbergen was at the front, there was a point in the mid stages of the race where he started to fall off and he started to drop back into traffic. And I was thinking, oh, what's going on here? Like the booth, the drivers in the broadcast team were foolishly saying things like, oh, maybe he's intimidated and he's finding out how hard it is to race at this level.
I can't express how frustrating it was to listen to the disrespect they're putting on Shane Van Gisbergen. Just they're like, oh, NASCAR competition's super intense. Oh, maybe he's not ready for the big stage. Yada yada yada. They obviously have never watched a supercars race and how close and how aggressive those guys are in these big heavy sedans. Like he proved them wrong. He put egg on their face. Like he was just starting to motor through the field. He was the only car passing people on a consistent basis while being the fastest car on track. He was literally a man amongst boys in this last stage of the race. Like he was doing 2 overtakes a lap. Like he'd overtake someone, you check the next sector, he's right on the other guy's bumper. Like he later on admitted like he was tiptoeing throughout most of the race, just try to get a feel. But like when Shane Van Gisbergen gets the green light, say it's go time, he was freaking going.
Yeah, me and you, we've watched a load of supercar races in the past, and for the booth to suggest that this was aggressive and intimidating for a supercars driver, that's just fucking hilarious. Because supercars racing is another level on this kind of thing. And yeah, as you say, his lap times, by the end of the race, they worked out that if he'd been running his average lap pace and the whole race had gone green, he would have lapped everyone up to 7th place. Like, holy shit, his pace was amazing in the closing stages.